Canelo on points has got to be one of boxing's more classic modern catchphrases. I remember Alexander Usyk, when asked by a reporter about a fight that didn't involve Canelo, who he thinks going to win, and he starts grinning to himself and says Canelo on points. Of course, we're talking about that judge's insurance we've seen so many times. This time it actually was Canelo on points, legitimately. The only slight raise of the eyebrows was due to the cards seemingly being a bit too close. Now, were they trying to do the unthinkable and try and rob Canelo somehow? Or were they just trying to get things closer so it looked better? So that in the event of there being another dodgy card against Golovkin, they feared it might trigger some real investigation this time, because we've had so many bad cards and there's a lot of persistent talk about how Golovkin was robbed in the first two fights, even though I felt they were very close. Maybe they were just a bit wary and trying to balance things, so to speak. In any event, this was no great fight. This was no memorable rubber match. This was very much the manifestation of what the more negative people would be saying. Or perhaps just more the realists. That you've got a 40-year-old guy against a 32-year-old guy, they're getting paid loads of money. You know, let's just waltz our way through this one and we all go home winners. Golovkin did not fight with the passion of a guy who was like, look, this is last chance saloon, let's go for it. And where was Canelo's passion with his point to prove? The fact he didn't like what had been said against him. You know, this is personal, I hate him. None of that came out in the ring. It was pretty tame stuff, say, compared to the rematch. Both guys seemed to very much fight within themselves. Both seemed to be complicit in this idea that, look, let's just do enough so we see the bell. Nobody quite thinks it's fake. Not that I believe in any of these conspiracy theories that there's some kind of Canelo contracts he gives out where opponents agree to be carried to a certain amount. No, but I reject the idea that these guys gave 100%. They didn't. For Golovkin, of course, it meant risk being stopped himself, really going for it, emptying the tank. But that's what you have to do if you really are there for glory, all the stuff you said in the build-up. And if Canelo was really there to try and do damage, to try and knock him out from the first round, is what he said he'd be doing, he'd be looking for the KO straight away, well, that didn't show in his performance either, did it? They both had reserves, they both weren't willing to give them up. It was a little bit of Floyd Mayweather all over again. Says it's blood, sweat and tears. It's actually a bit more of an exhibition. And so, to the best of our knowledge, for the rest of all time, it's going to read 2 to Canelo and 1 draw. Now, for reasons I've just laid out, sentiments which a lot of people share, a lot of people aren't going to factor in that second win. We're going to look at the first 2 fights, where the meaning was, the passion, and most people seem to say Golovkin deserved to edge them. And that seems to be where the consensus is there. And Canelo even probably tried to age him out a little bit in the first fight. Of course, he dropped the title initially, WBC. He was a bit reticent. And then maybe once he saw a bit of vulnerability against Danny Jacobs, he went, all right, let's make the fight. I feel a bit more secure now. Had the fight happened in 2015, which for me was the ideal overlap for both guys, then going off what we know, surely that makes a fresher Golovkin the winner, and quite possibly officially. Now, for the really big Golovkin fans, who were very much invested in that last fight, they wanted to see their guy, if possible, get a KO ideally, really exercise all that frustration that was in the first 2 fights because of the decisions, and justice has been served. Emphasising the fact that Golovkin was always the better middleweight. For me, that was never the big takeaway. In that rematch, I think we saw 2 world-level operators reach their ceiling. Now, yes, Golovkin was always older, it wasn't ideal, but was age really the culprit in the space of a couple of years to really affect his performances and ability to destroy from like the likes of a Rubio to a Danny Jacobs? Or was it more to do, as I believe, with the opponent. Like I said in my previous video, when it comes to Golovkin's decline, it has been quite gradual. He's always had solid fundamentals, he's never been quick. He's certainly not a reflex fighter, whereby when your athleticism goes, everything else goes to crap. No, that's definitely not Golovkin. And so I'll just emphasize the point again that I think we had two very good middleweights there who produced one very good fight, and that's it. The middleweight and the super middleweight divisions have been poor for quite some time. Probably the main culprit, pretty obvious, people not fighting each other, other champions. The last time the middleweight division, I think, had some integrity about it was when Sergio Martinez was champ, the Argentinian. Beat Pavlik, who of course beat Jermaine Taylor twice, who beat Hopkins twice. Had that great KO rematch victory over Paul Williams. He was quite active. There was this delicate window when an aging Martinez could have fought a younger Golovkin. That would have been so much better for 160 pounds. Instead, an injured Martinez finally fights Cotto, who didn't have much business being up at middle. You see, this shows how weak the era is. Even Golovkin isn't the biggest middle, but Canelo at 5'8". I've always thought Canelo was good, but in a lively middleweight and super middleweight division, Canelo shouldn't be doing too much. He shouldn't be having too much success. Not with a guy who's always had stamina problems. Imagine him against the James Tonys, right? Even Nigel Benz or Chris Eubanks, guys who had real substance. He is in real scraps there. He has done very well. He still is one of the best fighters on the planet. And you do have to give him credit for trying to push up to light heavy and take on the likes of Bivol. A bit of that old school spirit. But there's being game and then there's being dumb. And some of that pound for pound king narrative, he may have been getting a bit too used to it. And that's pushing him towards a rematch because he's thinking, no, I am good enough. But that was an easy 10-2. I don't think that's a good idea going for the Bivol rematch. Heal up, take care of your wrist. I think have a year out because Canelo's been too active, actually, which is a weird thing to say. But heal up the body, collect yourself, give David Benavidez a bit more respect, and let's go for that all-Mexican clash. Why not? As for Golovkin, I think he should take heed of what the likes of Vasily Lomachenko has said, what many people will be saying now, and perhaps what that performance said, that I'm ready to retire. I'm happy to. I didn't have a lot of passion in the ring there. That certainly wasn't Last Chance Saloon. That was, hope I don't get knocked out. Cool, I'm happy. Look when the decision got rendered right. Golovkin just does a nice little smile and a nod. And I don't think that just was the classic Golovkin personality. That was a nod of just like, yeah, I'm not too fussed. Didn't get knocked out. Let's collect my check. He has been a credit to boxing. He was unfortunate in the way he was held back. Maybe he had too many other amateur fights. That's another line of reasoning. But hey, he did create a lot of excitement. He was in many exciting fights. You've just made a lot of money. Go and enjoy it.